The Apu trilogy has always been one of the crown jewels of international art house cinema. It's 3 films, each one miraculous in a different way, deeply humanistic, deeply moving films. For us, to have them as part of the Criterion Collection was always a goal. I mean, there was no question. Rights just weren't available. And when the rights did become available, that's when we started to realize what a challenge this whole project was going to be.
The films were always known to be problematic. Negatives were known to be lost, and existing film that was around was known to be doopy and in poor condition. In this world of mastering for video and mastering for DCP, you're really only as good as your film. You must have film that has all those things you need. Clean, good grayscale, as original as you can possibly get. And with the Apu films, we weren't finding those things. And that's because the films were known to be burned in a fire.
In the summer of 1993, several of the negatives to Rise feature films, including the original camera negatives to all 3 films in the Apu trilogy, were moved to a laboratory in London where the first steps of preserving the films were going to be taken. But there was a catastrophic fire in the laboratory that destroyed dozens and dozens of film cans. But luckily, the director of the Academy Film Archive at that time, Michael Friend, asked the laboratory to box up everything related to Rise films. Every film can, every piece of film, whether it was even ash at this point. He wanted everything gathered up and moved to Los Angeles. So here we have some of the original camera negative of Padre Panchali that was not sent to Immagine Ritrovato in Bologna, because as you can see, it's simply too burnt, melted to even be unwound or be scanned. This is not a good feeling showing this. This feels like what I imagine coroners must feel like. You can kind of smell that too. This is what a film in good shape looks like that hasn't been through a fire. Nice, round, and perfect.
I was meeting the friends from Criterion, and we paid a visit to Los Angeles laboratory, okay, because there was a film that was a little bit difficult. I remember very well when I saw the film, I put in a rewinding table, and I started to rewind the film, and was almost no perforation, and was very damaged, very warped. So I mean, it was exposed to a fire, and Lee asked me, "Can you do something with that?"
So he said, "Lee," in his Italian accent, "Lee, let me take the film back to Bologna with me." And I said, "Well, it's not my film, so first we better actually get some permission for this." And we called the Academy, and they said, "Yeah, they know what to do with it."
I went back with a reel. We did several tests, mainly on 2 ways. One for the film repair, for reconstruction, because where we have no perforation, we have to recreate perforation. And the second level for scanning, trying all the scanning system. I mean, sprocket wet, sprocket dry, sprocketless dry.
So when we first saw these tests of the wet gate and dry gate, we realized that the best solution was going to be fix the sprockets, fix the perforations, and do it wet gate.
This is the chemical department where we put the film in treatment. Apu's trilogy had a rehydrating treatment and was made with some chemicals, water, glycerin, and acetone. We put the chemicals in this brick. We put the brick here under in this rehydrating bell, and we put the film up, and this way the gases comes up and goes in the film.
So this is the original negative of Padre Panchali, the first film of the Apu trilogy. And this negative was exposed to fire. So we had a lot of problems melting problems and burned parts. So we had to think about the repair in another way. This is a photo of how the wheel arrived to us. As you can see, really burned in some parts. So the first thing was to cleaning. In this case means cutting all the edges, the burned edges. So 300 meters in this way and 300 meters in this way. This is the 300 meters of edges that we had to take out. Normally we don't cut anything of the film, but in this case, to be able to use the good parts, we had to clean it in this way. It took us like almost 500 hours to reconstruct all the perforation in 8 reels of this negative.
So this is the reel 5 of a Paraito, and was necessary to divide this reel in 2 parts. A part A that is more damaged, and a part B less damaged. I'll show you part A of reel 5 of a Paraito. To allow the film pass through the scanner, we take off completely the burned perforation, and we reconstruct with new film and double perforated tape. Was pretty bad, as you can see. We had a burned part on the edge that crumbled. Then I can check if some piece of new film is more than I need. With the new film, the flexibility is maintained, and so the film can pass through the scanner with any problem.
Having the repaired negative for Padre Panchali and Paragito was great, but we still needed to fill in material we couldn't use from the negative, and that was quite a bit of missing footage. So what we had to do was literally comb the world's archives for replacement film, like dupes and prints and anything that could be used. We had to look at all of it and see what was the best. And then we had to create like a digital timeline of all the sources and choose what film elements would provide the best source for the shot or scene. In the case of Apu Sansar, nothing from the fire was usable, but luckily we found a complete 35mm positive that was in really great condition. And all of these steps applied to the audio restoration as well, which posed its own set of challenges.
For the audio restoration, fire damage wasn't the issue. Decades of dirt and damage to the elements created clicks and pops and thumps, which required literally hundreds of hours for us to clean up. Also, with Padre Panchali, a big challenge for us was working with sound that had been recorded by first-time filmmakers using low-end equipment and filming in uncontrollable locations. Once we cleaned it of the residual dirt and hiss, the dialogue and the atmospheric sounds became much more audible.
হ্যারে তুই এত ছেলে মানুষ তোকে সকালে ঠাট্টা করে না ওকে অপু আয় এ নাও লক্ষ্মী ছেলে খেয়ে নাও পাতে ফেলতে নিয়েছি অপু
To perform the restoration process on all 3 films of the Apu trilogy took, I believe, about 8 months. We started in the fall and had our premiere of Padre Panchali late in the spring. So we were working on this very intensively for a very long time.
We stabilized the image, we ran deflicker, we did dust and fix, pulling out all the little tiny speckles of dirt, and we do all the automated processes so we can send it out to MTI where the operators can work manually and pick up anything I can't fix here. So in a big way, this is kind of our like first stop workhorse.
I'm working with a program called MTI Nova, which is a manual program that we use to remove dust and dirt from films. We also use this program to remove scratches, to do a little bit of stabilization work, to remove warps from the film.
After digital restoration is completed, it then comes into this room where it gets graded. And the idea is basically to match the shots so you can't tell what's the original negative and what's the replacement material. We want to make it appear seamless across the various sources used to make sure that black is black and that gray is gray, and of course that whites never get to the point where things are blooming out. Because we really want to make sure the film looks like film, which is our philosophy for our restoration technique. We would rather see original damage than end up with digital artifacts. And the idea really is not to see where the negative begins and ends, but to make it look like one big, great piece of film.
To turn something that was something you did because it was the right thing to do into something that also worked is really, really, really gratifying. But it's not anything we did, it's just that the films work. The films are incredibly compelling and beautiful, and they stand the test of time. So people come out for them week after week after week. And makes you very proud.